Shalom, dear friends, wonderful to be with you today. We are going to have a beautiful program. Just imagine, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And then He started light. And then He started to divide the water. And then He started the vegetation, created the vegetation. Then He created the sun and the moon and the stars. Then He created the animals. And then He created us. And you know what? The seventh day, what did He do? He rested of all this work. And we need to do the same. And after a busy week, what do? We rest. And we need to reconnect with Him. We need to reconnect with ourselves. We need to reconnect with each other, with the family. And how do we do that? Around the table. And what do we eat? A bread. So we're going to speak a bit about that today. We have a wonderful friend today here in the studio, and it's Ruth. Ruth, thank you for coming.
It's my
Ruth
pleasure.
Guggenheim. And she made Aliyah 3 years ago from Baltimore.
Baltimore, Maryland.
Maryland, exactly. And she's working right now with World Emunah, and she's the coordinator of resource development. And this is Israel's leading social welfare organization. But when you were in America, you were working with Jews for Judaism for 10 years. Then in 2011, Ruth was one of the only 300 individuals in North America to be nominated for the prestigious Jewish Communal Professional Award, which means that you work a lot socially with your community. Is it right? Because I don't know very much what is that.
So
what is this
my whole
award?
career basically has been in Jewish communal field. It was a very conscious decision to stay working in various organizations that work for and on behalf of the Jewish people.
Mm-hmm. You make Aliyah. Why did you make Aliyah?
I was raised in a very observant Jewish home, and I was raised always knowing that ultimately the Jewish people needed to return to Israel.
You know, I was thinking when I was preparing the program, friends, you know, like as Christian love Israel, and now it's like more Christian wants to connect with the Jewish people. And like now I see that Emunah, with the work that you are doing things so for the Christian. Can you explain a bit what this new
Emunah made a very conscious choice recently to develop relationships, to build the bridges between Jewish and the Christian communities. We understand that in the past, Emunah is over 80 years old, and when it was started by a group of religious Jewish women, and it's always been very effective, impactful in the Jewish community. But recently we've noticed, obviously, such a unique increase of Christian love on behalf of Israel and blessing towards Israel and the Jewish people that we realize that this is God speaking, saying that it is time for us to also help heal some of the wounds that have been between both of our people, and to see how we can build the bridges. And in Emunah, we know because of all the children and families that we work with in Israel, it is a wonderful opportunity to open up our hearts to the Christian community also, and to say to our Christian brothers and sisters, come, let us work together on behalf of God's children. And that is a very conscious choice. So in the past year, Emunah has looked at different things to step up to the plate and to develop the relationships.
This is amazing. So you want to speak also about Challah, because it's quite amazing that you took that to connect like Christian and Jews together.
Right. So, one of the things I realized as the individual kind of responsible for this strategic plan of developing these relationships is obviously the first step is to raise awareness about what Emunah does, who we are in Israel and who we are globally. And once people realize how powerful Emunah is and the hundreds of thousands of children and families we have impacted in 80 years, people say, wow, this is an amazing organization. We want to be a part of it. We want to be connected. We want to be a part of the Emunah family. So that's the first step. But we realize it can't be just about us. It can't be like, oh, come, we want you to come to Israel. We want to take you to some of our projects. It has to be about us also giving back. It's a mutually respectful relationship. Mm-hmm. And thinking it through, he said, what is it that might really touch the heart even further? And we thought, Challah in the Jewish world means so much. It's obviously, it's the idea of bread, obviously, Challah. But it's so much more. It's breaking bread together, it's sitting together, it's having fellowship, it's having dialogue. And it also brings us back to biblical times, to the time of the Beit HaMikdash, to the time of the Holy Temple. Very specifically throughout the Bible, there are a few mitzvot, commandments, that the people were responsible to take challah. Challah literally means the portion of bread, that when you are baking bread for Shabbat or whenever, you have to take a portion to give to the priests. That was a biblical commandment. And though now we don't have the temple, we still take challah. So people who are baking the bread, they make a special blessing, acknowledging that this is God's commandment, that we take this symbolic bread. So it means so much. So the whole idea behind challah is so symbolic. It's about the ingredients themselves. Everything in Judaism, you most likely know, isn't just the physical ramification. God did this, God gave us this and that. But there's a physical dimension and there's a spiritual or mystical. And baking challah and the ingredients, when we do this as Jewish women, especially baking challah is very prominent amongst Jewish women. It can be everybody, obviously, but women have taken this on for thousands of years. It's our special commandment.
Yeah. So let us look at this beautiful video that you gave me. So give a bit of the taste of the people, and we're going to carry on speaking about it. Watch that. So wasn't it amazing to see that? So we'll carry on to speak about that. So you are saying, it's like is what I like with the Jewish people. It's like physicality and spirituality, and we're putting in them together.
Exactly. Everything in Judaism, the dimensions of the concept of a mitzvah, of doing God's will, the commandments, is always very basic. It's giving us our foundation as people, just very, very basic, but then it's also explore the inner depth. It's the action behind it. It's the connecting to God. And the idea of challah, again, for us to bring it to our Christian sisters and brothers is to say, look, we've been doing this. This is special. This is the way that we bring God's blessings to everybody, to everyone's table, that we can break bread together, we can share together. So it's a project, it's an event. It's to say, when we come to your community, we would love to speak at churches and Christian organizations or private homes and say, in addition to speaking and being a part of your congregation and raising awareness about Emunah and how we can work together, let us come and let us do an event with you. Let's have some fun.
And you can see how to make it too, because it's very special. Now, when I you know what? I made my challah in 2000 already since 2003, because we started to love Israel. Like many people, it's like you are on a journey, and it's like I want to have my family more together, and Friday is important, so let us be around the table. And we started to make challah. It's a long time ago already, and it's like it's building something. But when I was doing some research, to work on this program, what I love and what what the lady was saying is like, you are bringing the elements of the world, like fire and air and water and all these things. And for me, I was like, wow, this is what I like with you as Jewish people. Is like bringing these things from the earth and from heaven. Again, it's like Genesis 1, heaven and earth, and he created it. And he wants to make it a beautiful thing. And now we say, okay, my family is big. Like the Jewish people have been here to show the light. And now we say, okay, let us add some people, and I'm the creator of every human being, and we can come together. Isn't it amazing? We're coming into an amazing time.
For sure. I mean, I think we all feel it's a very prophetic time. We certainly as Jews, and certainly myself as someone who made Aliyah, one of the goals was I didn't just want to read my history, I wanted to live it. Mm-hmm. And we are living in such an amazing time where we see miracles happening every day. As a Jew, I know it. I mean, I see it, I feel it. I know that all of our people are being gathered. God is speaking to us very, very clearly. And we have an opportunity to work together in bringing this godliness into the world. I don't pretend to know what God's vision is for all of us, but I think it's time. He wants some gesher building. He wants some bridge building where we start working together. And if we can start with something like a challah bake, if we can start by bringing that essence together. You mentioned fire and water that was on the video. So obviously these are the powerful creations that God made. And fire in Hebrew is Aish, Aleph Shin, Aish, fire. So I don't, it's something I was thinking recently. A woman is Isha and a man is Ish. Isha is Aleph Shin Hey, Ish is Aleph Yud Shin. So the essence of man and woman is Aish, is fire. If you take both of them, the Aleph and Shin, have the fire component, but then you take the Yud and you take the Hey, and that's God's name. In Judaism, that's part of God's name. So what was God saying? He was saying, like, man and woman, if you put God in the center of your world, it's a holy fire. It burns beautifully. If, though, you take God out of your relationship between man and woman, you'll burn each other. So it's that dynamic. And I think Challah has the same, it's the same idea. However we choose to look at it becomes personalized.
It's beautiful. And I was reading, you were saying some beautiful thing again, because I think it's not just make Challah. There is all this teaching behind. And you were speaking about like the bowl represent the bait, your home. And I was saying, can we go through that?
Sure. Actually, if you look inside the booklet, it has a little bit more. I'm not going to pretend that I know it all by heart. This particular booklet is, by the way, when we are doing the challah bake, whatever community we go to, every individual will get a booklet to take home that has the essence of that, has the ingredients. Obviously, also has some information about Emunah, but it talks about the spiritual elements.
So it's like the bowl is representing your home.
The bowl, right.
The
bowl,
flour. Yeah. That you use a lot of flour is represent the raw material, and you are doing some sifting. This is very good. It's like
not everybody sifts, but it's the idea that
yeah, but it's like God is doing some sifting in our life. Okay,
exactly.
You keep the good and you just put away the bad. The sugar is the sweetness, and I love when I make my challah. It's like a bit more sugar than even what they say because I want to make it sweet. It's like the end of the week, and it's important. The salt represents the rebuke. And also the commandments is like, like covenant that is with us all the time. I like that.
The salt is the basic element of the earth. That's what it shows. And so the commandment and the covenant between God and the Jewish people and God and the rest of the world is the basic, it's the salt of the earth. It's what keeps us going, yeah.
And after the yeast, how do you say it?
Yeast is
Shomrim.
Shomrim is the guardians the guardians. Also, the yeast is the concept of rising, clearly. It's interesting because we decided to, one of the taglines is rise to the occasion. It's the idea that two things. One is obviously challah, bread baking has to rise to really become bread. And that rising is both physical and spiritual. So it's rising to the occasion to meet God's commandments. When a person makes aliyah, the word aliyah, the root in English, is to rise. To rise, exactly. To go up towards God's will. So the yeast is a very important component, but also the yeast shows a little bit of, you can take your ego. Your ego could either be good or it can be too much. So if you have one more minute, I'll just tell you, like, the difference
Sure.
between challah, bread, and matzah that we use on Pesach. What's the difference? Because we say the same exact blessing when we make a bracha, a blessing over it before we eat it. Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. We thank God for the food of the land. The difference is that there's no yeast in matzah, and that was a very conscious choice when God gave us this, the whole story and everything. Mm-hmm. He was saying, remove your ego, that in order to fulfill God's commandments, you can't be about ego. Mm-hmm. You have to kind of deflate your ego a little. So the yeast, when we put yeast into our challah and bread, we kind of consciously think of keeping ourselves modest and humble before God and before our people.
And you know one thing also, you are telling me that you have Emunah angels, and I'm just thinking about Shomrim is also like Shomer is the one who are keeping, and with all the things that's happening right now, especially in America, there is a lot, not only in America, also in Europe, there is a lot of things that are happening to the Jewish community, but now there is some Christians who say, hey, let me stand up for you because you are part of me now. There is something happening that never happened before. And you are telling me, tell us a bit about the angel.
You're absolutely right. It was a choice. So this particular project, we are going to be calling Emunah Angels. Our website is Emunah Angels. We have a Facebook now. We just launched Emunah Angels, and we're saying, like, join the Emunah family. We consciously use the word angel because we do believe that you all, as our Christian friends and brethren, are overlooking us. That at this time in history, you have our backs. You are the guardian angels that God is preparing to help us get through this process.
Can you hear that? We need to be the guardians and the angels of the Jewish people. It's interesting. It's very touching what you are saying. When you know the history of what we've done as like Christianity has done, but now with I can see even in myself personally, when I see what's happening, I'm like, hey, do not touch my family. It's like you are becoming part of my family, and I can see that is happening to many Christians. This is just amazing. It's just amazing. Okay, we finished water, and it's like purity, and water is like, I'm saying also even like the place where you can be reborn. God is doing something with you. It's like amazing. A lot of things that we can learn from you. And oil is the blessing, shemen, and after the egg, which is like again the cycle of life is round, and it's like okay. And this is what I like also with the Jewish people. Is like I have the week, I'm working hard, and suddenly I'm resting, and it's like rolling. You roll 1 week by 1 week, and there is a time for you to be around the table, and I think it's a beautiful thing. Friends, you can start to do challah at home and start to connect with Emunah, because I think it's a beautiful thing that we can be partners now. It's just amazing.
So our goal is to get into as many communities as possible, to bring our event and to break bread together. And more important, at the event, again, it'll be fun. We will be making challah. The goal is to have a table so everyone will get the ingredients, everyone will make. Before that, there'll be a little talk and everything. There'll be singing, there'll be some prayer together, and really fellowship. So during the time that the dough, after we make it, and it's rising before we actually learn how to braid it, there'll be dancing and there'll be an opportunity to get together. The other goal is that we can create partnerships. So where we have communities that have both Jewish and Christian people that will work together, the committee, the team should be made up of both, so that opens that door to dialogue in those communities. Not every community is going to have the ability to have both Jewish and Christian committee members, but where we can, that is the goal, so that also our Christian friends who want to can be invited for Shabbat experiences.
Mm-hmm. This is wonderful. And you are doing that also in all around the world.
Our goal is to get, you want us, we'll be there.
I know, this is wonderful. So you see, you can be in touch with Ruth, and you can see the website and just go, and you want to see more, and here we go. You can do all these things, because it's just wonderful to be able to partner together. And we are in this time. Is that God is doing some amazing things. So Ruth, tell us a bit more about Emunah, because it's something very new for a lot of our viewers. So tell us a bit.
Okay, so great. Emunah started in 1935, really right before the onset of the Holocaust, as some people were already aware that things were happening not just in Europe, but also in Arab countries, that the Jewish people were starting to become threatened in that. So a group of religious women around the world decided to start what was then called pretty much orphanages in Israel. They realized that they needed to do something, and they needed to pull together and have an opportunity where possible to get children out of pre-Holocaust time, out of Europe, and also out of the Arab countries. A lot of people don't realize what happened in the Arab countries to the Jewish people,
Yes.
but we're also being, harassed, and anti-Semitism was growing there too. So what started as let's try to save as many children as possible ultimately grew. Obviously, after the war, many children, thank God, were able to be reunited with their families. Where they weren't, Emunah continued to raise them.
Wow.
In the very beginning, if you recall, and I know you know a lot of the history, in 1935 to 1940, there was denial's not the right word. They didn't even know what they were denying, because they didn't realize that things could get the way they were. But there was a foresight. For some people, some families, we'll get out of this, but in the meantime, take our kids to safety. It was the pre-modern day Israel. They brought them here, and they set up these homes. And again, those children, both from Europe and from the Arab countries, where families, unfortunately, were not able to be reunited, Emunah continued to raise the children and assure that they would become adults. So it started at that level, ultimately kept evolving, and started to work when the Medina, when the modern day Israel was formed and the government was formed. Emunah was one of the key organizations that the government turned to also to help to put things into place. Residential care facilities, we don't call them orphanages anymore. A lot of our children that are in our 5 residential care homes are children that unfortunately have to be removed from their homes due to abuse, neglect, court order. They're from very dysfunctional homes. They've been abandoned. Emunah is one that has 5 residential facilities for approximately 800 children that can come in, usually between 6 and they stay till they're 6 years old until 18. We have one home that has a special program specifically for children that babies and infants that have to be removed from home. Clearly, wherever possible, the court does not like to remove children from their homes, but sometimes there's no choice. So the residential care is one of the backbones of Emunah's impact on Israeli society. The next level, they realized, if we're raising these children, clearly education was critical. So Emunah started high schools. Okay, so we have female high schools for young ladies. The goal being that Emunah realized very early on, if girls weren't given the opportunity to be educated, they couldn't continue with being supportive of their family. Many were single moms at that point, or still are, and they needed to have their education. So we have high schools throughout Israel. We also, Emunah started the very first liberal arts college in all of Israel in the 1950s. It's located in Jerusalem.
For girls again?
For girls. It's the Appleman College of Art and Technology, and for 60 years have been turning out some of Israel's key artists and art teachers and drama students. It's amazing, actually. I don't know if you're familiar. In Israel, they put out, when they do a new shekel, the bills, so they put out like for a contest. So for many years, Emunah students have been winning that. Your $20 shekel, your 20 shekel bill is an Emunah student from a couple of years ago. Many of the stamps that are used at the post office are from Emunah graduates. That's the caliber of some of the young ladies coming out of these schools. So we have that, and one of the key things that Emunah is very, very proud of is our subsidized network of child care centers, daycare centers. We have over 125 around the country. We have over 8,000 kids every single day in a daycare center, and it's critical to the stability of a family. So that is one of our key things.
So during the day or after school?
So we actually, it's combination. We have the normal daycare where mom or dad can drop the kid off at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, pick up the child at around 5. We have some specialized multi-purpose centers that were meant for families that really needed additional support services. Also, what's given in the multipurpose are family therapies and also mentoring for ladies. critical for long-term growth of the mom, so that she has a mentor, she has therapy so that she can pull herself together. We also have crisis counseling centers to help support the families, the parents, to strengthen the parent, the child, and the unit. We have 11 crisis counseling centers around Israel. We have the biggest one in Sderot. So, as you most likely are aware, with everything that's been going on in the south,
yes, Sderot is a place very close to Gaza, so a lot of missiles, so a lot of stress, so a lot of, when you are pressure cooker all the time, there is things that are happening and it's hard as a family.
Exactly.
Everybody
parents that were healthy up until about 2 years ago, the constant fear, the constant panic, they are like imploding. The fear that if I send my kid off to school today, will I see him later? It's a very frightening thing. So a lot of parents are under a tremendous amount of anxiety, and the Crisis Counseling Center is the service in the South to help these families.
So can you see Emunah is doing a lot of work. By the way, Emunah, people need to know, in Hebrew, it means faith. So basic faith in action.
Exactly.
Very important today. Faith in action is like you can, again, we're speaking about in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, and it's like we are created and He does things, but now He's also so like ready to be in action, helping each other, and so Emunah is doing amazing work. So you can go, on the website and you can see what's happening. You can see how you are like, we are connecting Jews and Christians together. You can have an impact in Israel. You can bless the people. You can touch children. You can again ask for Ruth to come. Wherever in the world. She was telling me that she was going to Africa, in Liberia. So it's wonderful to see, the work that you are doing and the willingness. I'm very touched to see that you are calling the Christian your angels, that we can change the world. We can change history too. We are coming into a new era. Thank you, Ruth, for coming and speaking about Emunah and about Challah and how we can act together. And friends, you can go onto the website of Emunah. You can really learn. You can connect. Ruth is willing to go all around the world. She's an amazing woman. And from Ruth and from me, bye. And I will see you next week.